Welcome back to SEO for Hire. This week we have on a very exciting guest. We have turned the tables this week, and as we are hitting the end of the year for 2025, we thought it would be quite interesting to bring on our head of recruitment, Daris, at SEO for Hire. Daris manages both client and candidate side, and we've had a lot of really exciting stories, success stories, case studies coming from our clients and candidates alike. So we thought, we'd do a little recap in this episode, just chatting about the state of the job market, where we think it's going, any tips that we can give for our candidate side, salary insight, negotiation tips, red flags and green flags, and all of the above. So without further ado, Daris, thanks so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. It's weird being the one in the hot seat at the minute. So see how it goes.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, maybe you might be kicked off of the host and become a guest more often. But yeah, I think to kick it off, Daris, I think I'd first like to ask, like, from the point of the head of recruitment side, for SEO for Hire, what's your sort of overview of the SEO job landscape this year? What have you been seeing this year? How has it sort of developed from last year, and where do you kind of see it going as we head into 2026?
Yeah, how long do we have? It's been absolutely crazy this year. I think everybody will agree, both candidate side, client side. We've seen obviously like mass layoffs on one side of things, which has made the job market a lot more competitive. People who are great SEOs have been let off through obviously like no fault of their own, just client churn and stuff like that that's caused it. So again, there's been the talent pool that is available at the minute is like super, super high, which makes each job role very, very competitive. On the flip side of that, we have agencies, large scale companies that are going through layoffs. We also have other ones, like especially a lot of our clients at the minute, who are going through like mass growth, which is so weird to see that both of them are happening at the same time. Yeah, it's quite hard to describe to candidates when they ask that question as well. It's like the one side is like taking off and going crazy, the other side is like having massive drop offs. So yeah, it's been an absolute roller coaster, I think, for everybody there. So when it comes to the job market, one of the biggest things that we've seen and from chatting to candidates is that every application at the minute seems to have, a couple of hundred, if not 1,000 applicants for each position. A lot of those are spam and they're not actual suitable candidates for that position, especially through like LinkedIn and stuff like that. But it still makes it harder for those proper candidates to get their resume and their CVs seen, and makes it like almost impossible to actually land those first interviews. So yeah, the job market's in a tough spot at the minute. But I think definitely we've seen an uplift in about 24% of open roles this year compared to last year, which again is promising sign that, AI came out at the start of the year, everybody was sort of panicking, but there was a wee bit of a halt towards sort of hiring. But I think the last sort of 2-3 quarters have just been absolutely crazy. We've seen our biggest year from new client acquisition, new roles in as well. So I think going into next year, it's going to be more of the same. We've already had 6 calls in December time for companies that can hire in January, which is usually unheard of in recruitment. It's usually slowing down and then January's go, go, go. But it's nice to see that we're having those clients come in before that with a wee bit of forward thinking for the new year.
So, Daris, before we head on, you were actually mentioning this in the previous question, which I actually wanted to dig a little bit deeper into, is that how have you seen sort of the role of AI being involved in CV generation over the past year? And, has it, made it more difficult for clients to find candidates and vice versa? I know that we are seeing a lot of candidates reach out to recruitment companies much more, reach out to us over the past year much more as well. So yeah, I just wanted to know your thoughts on how you've seen AI in CVs playing a role in recruitment and job hunting over the past year.
Yeah, it's definitely had an effect. Again, like I sort of mentioned before, each application on LinkedIn is getting where each job role on LinkedIn is getting hundreds of applicants through like the quick apply, where you just have your CV ready to go and, it sends it off straight away, which, if you're applying en masse, you might think, oh, this is handy, this is quick, but you can't tailor your resume then for each individual job application. So it is going to hurt you in the long run. You might get, 100 applications sent out in a day or a week, but how many of them have you tailored your resume to? How many in that sort of job description, how many bullet points have you not included in your CV because you didn't take the time to go through it? You just hit quick apply, which again hurts your application process in the long run. Like, it's the job market. I don't think people understand how competitive it is at the minute, where like 2 or 3 bullet points on your CV could make like a huge difference to whether you get that first interview or not. If you're applying for an agency, say for an SEO specialist position, and that agency, 80% of their clients are in the law firm space. If you have that experience but you haven't put it on your resume because you've made a generic CV that you can do the mass applying to, chances are you're not going to get looked at or taken into, because there'll be so many people who have tweaked their CV or their resume to include, worked with XYZ law clients, managed 8 to 10 law firm clients per month, etc. And they're going to get priority when it comes to interviews and stuff like that. So it has a negative effect in that sense. What I would always recommend is use AI not to create your CV or your resume, but to help you build it. So like, I always think it's really hard to actually understand and put into paper what you do on a day-to-day basis, because like it's so mundane to you. You think even the basic tasks are easy and that everybody understands what to do, but you do need to include them on the CV. So it's good, like, sort of thought exercise to like ask GPT, like, what should I include? Paste in a few job descriptions. What are they looking for in this here? Like, what experience can I draw on? Don't get it to write it out, but get it to create like sort of thinking points on what you can add in from yourself. I think handwritten or self-written CVs are always the way forward. Draw on previous case studies, previous client work and stuff like that, but just use it to make sure that everything that you should include is being included in that. And yeah, from our side, we've seen clients actually come to us and we've won a lot of new business because they've had too many applicants for roles, which at the start of the year, or even like my last few years in recruitment, I thought would have been unheard of, because usually if they're getting a lot of applicants, they don't want to spend money on the sort of specialized headhunters. So yeah, we've come in and we've sort of had to create like a shortlist where we only maybe send across 5 candidates for each role, and then the clients will go ahead, streamline their entire process, and usually have an offer out within 2 weeks. So again, if you want to be in the sort of the top 5 of those people, you need to have like a hyper focused resume for that position. So again, that's not going to be done through a generic ChatGPT. It needs to be chat to a recruiter, find out exactly what that client's looking for, what bullet points you can add into your resume, and then go from there.
From your point of view, I know it like could be kind of difficult to, I guess, if you could give us like sort of like a generic example of this. Can you tell us like a little bit about the scorecard that we use and how, if candidates are sort of tailoring their CVs, what they can look out for if they see a job ad, just based on like how our scorecard works?
Yeah. So our scorecard is very dependent, basically based off how our client call went with the client, the onboarding stuff. Again, we all take sort of recordings from those calls, from the client's website, from the client's job description as well. And then what we do, so we have our industry back vet process. So we'll create a list of vet questions based off that information that we have from the client and based off the actual candidate's background. So from any calls we've had previously with them, and obviously their CV, portfolio, any of their own websites, etc., to build out sort of custom vet questions for that candidate in particular. And what we do from those answers, then we generate a scorecard. So again, covers everything that the client is looking for and how the candidate answered those questions in relation to that. And then we give them sort of full sort of trophy case, interview highlights, and then we separate it down into about 12 to 14 different subtopics of SEO, whether it's like more on the technical side, could be client communication, could be sort of local SEO, Google Business Profiles, etc., and give them a score of like sort of 1 to 5, and we comment on why they got that score. So again, it gives the client a nice breakdown into that candidate's particular sort of strengths and weaknesses, and also allows them to sort of tailor their interview process based off individual candidates rather than have a generic interview process for that role in particular. So for example, if one candidate is a lot more sort of technical than the other, then they can maybe test them a bit more on how they would be client-facing questions. Where if somebody comes from maybe a more client-facing role and maybe aren't as strong as a technical, then that client can maybe test them a bit more on their technical side and find any sort of weaknesses in there. And then, yeah, create a more sort of unique interview style process internally, which I think makes them hire definitely the right person and yeah, makes that person stick.
Cool. So Daris, we've chatted about AI and how it's sort of been, playing a vital role in 2025, obviously, and moving into the new year as well. That as well, we've also noticed SEO roles evolving over the past year quite drastically. So I'd love to know what type of SEO roles were most in demand. Was it technical, multifunctional, strategic roles? I know that we did also, from our own experience, notice a lot of like growth partner roles or growth role marketing roles as well. How have you seen sort of SEO roles evolve, and what are some of the most in-demand SEO roles that you're seeing at the moment?
Yeah, again, we cover such a wide variety, and it's hard just to base it off our own client list because obviously there's a lot more SEO roles out there at the minute as well. But in terms of sort of particular roles, again, it's not necessarily a specific job title. It could be an SEO lead, a senior strategist, manager, but a lot of what our clients are looking for are candidates that I think probably a year ago, an SEO strategist was just a strategist where, they would create the strategy. Sometimes if there's an account management team, they wouldn't even have to be client facing, but they would be the one creating the overall sort of strategy for, 6 to 12 accounts, whatever it is, and then passing it on to sort of specialists that would go in and do the execution side of things. A lot of our clients now, just with not necessarily the emergence of AI, but because there's so much going on with SEO at the minute, and I don't know if you want to call it AEO, GEO, but ranking in LLMs to a certain extent is becoming, again, it's such a small percentage of search at the minute, but I think our clients, their clients are looking to be involved in that and get leads from that as well. So again, all of that combined means that they no longer want strategists that just focus on strategy. They want strategists that are client facing. They want strategists that can actually go in and do execution work themselves. So a lot of the senior strategist roles we are seeing now are 50% strategy, 50% implementation, because the nuances are changing constantly at the minute. They want their strategists to be sort of still in the weeds, learning and seeing like what works best, why it doesn't work, what can they sort of copy and paste to other clients, etc. So I think that sort of, I don't know if you want to call it like a trifecta of skill sets, but to be client facing, to be able to keep up with sort of the newest trends and adapt your strategies accordingly, and then also be hands-on and still want to be implementing and testing new ideas on client sites is a skill set that a lot of our clients are looking for at the minute. And there's usually that sort of path in SEO where you get senior, then you sort of step out of the weeds and you become more team management, more strategy focused, whereas clients are sort of changing that back now and want people that are hands-on in the weeds, testing new ideas constantly. So somebody that still loves to be involved is something that's been real important this year.
And what sort of hiring trends has surprised you the most this year?
It's a good question. I think we touched on it earlier, but again, how many clients are hiring at the minute in terms of December time? Like we always jump on client calls, and every time we ask them, when do you want this position to be filled by? It's always yesterday, last week, etc. So they're always waiting until they have an urgent need for it, and then they come to us. Whereas now, what we're offering our current client list is sort of strategy mapping, where we can create a list and a nice warm sort of pipeline of candidates ready for you for the new year. And I think we already have 3 or 4 clients that have signed up for that. So we're working on them to basically strategize what roles look most likely to need filled at the start of the year, when they get budgets, when they get an increase in sort of client list as well. Which means that instead of waiting 2-3 weeks after they come to us to find the right person, they can just hire straight away and start the interview process straight away, which is always beneficial, especially because the market is getting more and more competitive at the minute. If you have a 2-3 week head start over your competitors, chances are you're going to have that candidate start for you before they even heard of any other sort of opportunities with your competitors. But yeah, I think that's probably the biggest surprise at the minute, which is, it's obviously quite a nice one.
Cool. And just jumping back to, we were chatting about that trifecta of skill sets that you were chatting about, but I'd like to dig a little bit deeper into that. This year, like what sort of skills, hard skills, did you see that were almost non-negotiable for high-performing candidates?
Yeah, hard skills, again, it's a difficult sort of question because it's very much dependent on role specific. What we seem to hire quite a lot of people that worked in sort of local SEO side of things this year. So we've had a lot of agencies that specialize within particular sort of niches like law firms, etc. Whereas a lot of it's like Google Business Profile Management at scale, managing like multi-location local SEO clients. A lot that we've seen, a skill set that we've seen sort of transfer across every sort of role and every sort of industry, is people that are really sort of good at creating SOPs and building out workflows for the agency or for their department. Again, with leveraging AI to involve that, a lot of the most successful SEOs that I've seen have built workflows that have cut down deliverable times by X% or X number of hours per week by introducing one or two workflows that can then increase that. So I'd say that is probably the most valuable asset. Obviously, you still have to be a strong SEO in the background of that, but that's a strong sort of bonus that sets you apart from a lot of other candidates at the minute, and ones that our clients tend to go for.
Cool. Love that. And like, I kind of want to transition into something that has been quite a hot topic for us this year, that we created a lead magnet about it, I think a year and a half, 2 years ago, and it took off quite well, which was salary and negotiations. And it actually like sparked an idea in us that kind of it's just been flying so much since then. We've just been building on that conversation, and realizing that there is actually such a knowledge gap, and a communication gap, in this aspect, and it's something that we really want to press into in the new year. I'd love to know, like, from this past year alone, what was your takeaway on sort of like salary ranges? What did you see that was consistent for early, mid, and senior levels? I know they obviously vary based on like locations and things like that, but yeah, if you could possibly give like maybe a basic overview. I know that Salary Guide does also provide a lot more insight and benchmarking into this, but we also like help sort of like pull data from Salary Guide for a lot of our advice and things like that. So yeah, I'd love to know like what your sort of, you had boots on the ground in terms of managing negotiations and things like that, and yeah, what have you been seeing in terms of salary trends this year?
Yeah, I think there was definitely a boom in salaries after COVID or during COVID when skill set was in demand. So I think they're sort of leveled off now at the minute. So we're starting to see a bit more sort of consistency across the roles. Again, what I tell candidates, and candidates always ask me, what sort of salary bracket should I be aiming for? This is what I'm on currently. What jump do you think I should be able to make in my next role? It is so nuanced on what type of client you're talking to, what industry they're in, what sort of background that you come from yourself. For example, we could have a senior specialist or a strategist role with an agency client and say it's 95K salary USD. That could be sort of the middle of their range. And for somebody who comes in, say it's like a technical specialist role, somebody who comes in who's a great technical specialist, 6+ years experience, whatever, and they're seeking sort of 90, they're maybe seeking 100,000. then again, the client look at that, they might be like, that's a bit high for our budget. This client say they work in SaaS. This person doesn't have any SaaS experience, but they're really strong sort of technical SEO. Then we find somebody that comes in, they're technical SEO, they've worked with an agency that has only worked with SaaS clients for the last 4 years. That person is going to be a lot more valuable, and if they're seeking 105, 110, that agency is going to be a lot more inclined to stretch the budget out for that person, rather than somebody who has slightly more years experience, but more sort of generic years experience, and say working across like e-com or something like that. So again, it depends very much on your background, how niche it is to that position itself, how quick you can sort of hit the ground running. Do you need to change up on that sort of competitive landscape? Do you know the industry inside out and stuff like that? Because there's a lot of different nuances between industries. I know there's quite a few people that say, oh, SEO is SEO, but it's not really when it comes to like local compared to like national campaigns, international campaigns. It is completely different, and you need to understand that. So how much your background lines up with that client, and how much obviously resource that client has as well for that position. But we filled sort of 2 or 3 same positions, but each candidate got a different salary based off their unique background. So again, you need to focus on that, and the best way to do that is chat to a recruiter and find out what sort of nuances the client's looking for.
Speaking of chatting to recruiters, I love a good a good case study as well, coming from a marketer myself. But can you tell us any notable negotiation wins for that you've helped candidates pull off this year?
Yeah, again, negotiations is something that we've actually had to introduce into our contract for clients, that we deal with all of that now, because we've had a few horror stories in the past where candidates and clients try to do it together, and it just, it's not a good sign. Like a candidate could have been great throughout the whole interview process. They've told us what they wanted to start, say 85k salary, and then the client offers them, and then all of a sudden they've had like a change of heart, or they've watched some sort of Jordan Belfort video and they're like, oh no, I want 95 now, and they just send that back to the client, and it blindsides the client. Like the client, they never talked about this in the first 3 or 4 interview processes. They never mentioned it to me either. So when the client gets his email back, they're confused. They're like, okay, this doesn't seem like the person that we've been chatting to for the last 2-3 weeks. Why have they sort of blindsided us because of this? Like, that's not sort of the type of person that we want to bring on board. So again, there's a load of different circumstances of why that salary could have jumped, but candidates don't really get that across. They just said, this is what I need now. Whereas if they come to us, Daris, I've had this other job offer, I really like company X, but this company Y have offered me 90, 95, I've got a mortgage, I've got wife, kids, whatever it is, I need to think of them. Then we can go back to the client and be like, listen, he's interviewed with another company, not through ourselves, but they've offered him this amount. I think he's worth X amount. Is there a way that we can sort of meet in the middle, come to sort of a compromise on that and get this over the line? Because 9 times out of 10, like, the client is just as desperate to get that person on board as that person is to get the job themselves. So there's always going to be a bit of wiggle room if it is the right fit. One case in particular, we had somebody come in who had basically got offered 80,000 at the start, and they were doing some sort of freelance work on the side. This client had sort of non-compete, non-solicit agreements, which means that they couldn't act out on that sort of freelance work if they signed for that client. So we ended up negotiating for about 2 days, maybe back and forth just with emails. And we got that person a 15k increase to a 95k base, which is obviously great for us, great for them. That person, one of the biggest selling points for them is the sort of the senior leadership team in that agency. So they knew they would come in, they knew that they would learn a lot, and like they would be upskilled like straight away. So that's why they wanted to sort of take that risk. But again, they didn't want to leave that sort of excess money on the table. Like, they were still had a mortgage and stuff like that. So we created that sort of buffer with that 15k, which balanced it out. And yeah, that's probably our biggest success this year.
Love it. I am looking forward to coming back at the end of 2026 and hearing more of those stories. Cool. I would love to move on to some wins and good case studies / stories from candidates as well. And I think a good question to kick this off with is, what were some of the most impressive things that candidates did that made them get hired immediately?
Yeah, another good question. One of the probably my favorite story again. So we were working with an in-house brand that was pretty much like a SaaS tool. So they were looking somebody, I think it was like 8 to 10 years experience, and they wanted somebody with strong background within SaaS, who again, like I mentioned before, understood the market well, understood what sort of nuances worked well within that sort of competitive niche. So we put I think 5 people across to them, 4 of which had really strong backgrounds in SaaS. One didn't, but they were really good SEO. So I was like, it fit them well. It was actually that person that didn't have any background in SaaS that got the job because of their interview technique. So they went in, and the first call was with I think it was like the CMO and the SEO director. And on the call, he just asked if he could share a screen, and he did like a live screen share and did an audit of their own website. So he went in, he's like, this is what I would recommend you guys fix already, and spotted like, it's not a major sort of strategy, but it's like 5 or 6 low-hanging fruits that they could sort of fix, backed it up with like proper data as well. And that's just what that sort of initiative for thinking outside the box is what that client was really looking for. So yeah, he got progressed straight away to second stage and was successful, got offered that role. I think he started within 2 weeks. So again, when the clients find that right person and somebody that can take that sort of initiative, they act just as fast. So yeah, that's probably the biggest thing that I've seen. Being able to take initiative in interviews is one way to stand out.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So we are now nearing the end of the 30-minute webinar. And I think the best way that I would like to wrap this up is if I could maybe chat to you for the last bit of this episode, just on actionable advice that we could give to candidates. I think to kick things off with that, I would love to maybe just ask you, what would you advise SEOs to add to their CV? Like, what sort of CV advice do you mainly have for them? What sort of things stood out to you this year, and what would you maybe consider removing if people are just fluffing up their CVs at this point?
Yeah. So my biggest pet peeve in seeing a CV or resume is when people just say like provided SEO recommendations or executed SEO optimizations. Like, what does that mean? Like, that adds actual like zero value to your CV at all. Instead, like, tell me like what optimizations those are, like what strategies you implemented, what were the results, what were the time frame of that. Like, increased traffic by, give like percentages, like increased traffic, 60% year on year. Was it within the first 3 months? Did you see anything? Was there anything looking back now that you would change going forward and doing it the next time? And just on that, like, even when you're bringing that, it gives you a lot of talking points into that interview. They'll ask you, oh, you achieved like mega results for this SaaS client. Like, how did you go about that? We're struggling with that. It gives you another talking point in the interview that you should know off by heart and less stuff to actually have to worry about. On the flip side of that, like when you get into interviews as well, don't be afraid to like tell clients about something that didn't work out well, like a strategy that didn't go as you hoped. Like, it could have been with the result of like a new update or new algorithm change. Clients love to see like just more about the way you think and how you think rather than actual necessary results as well. If you can tell a client, listen, because of this update, we saw like our clients in these sectors drop, but then tell them about like how you're going about fixing it, what you've implemented, what you've changed, what you're expecting to see over the next few months. Like, that's a lot more valuable to a client than just going and going through like a rehearsed case study. So yeah, that's one thing I'd focus on people to do with their CVs, is add as much detail, stats, numbers, percentages as possible.
I love that. Awesome. Second to last question is, what do you think candidates should realistically expect moving into 2026?
Yeah, to be honest, I think it's just going to be more of the same. I think if you're on the lookout for a new role now, it's probably one of the best times. Things are going to quiet down over Christmas time. It's a lot of chance to get your details right on your CV, your resume. tweak your portfolio, because come January time, there could be a lot of companies that are looking to hire for the new year. They've developed their team structures over their quiet Christmas break. They've got maybe more budget and stuff now in place as well. So I think if you're ready to hit the ground running in January, that's going to be key.
Perfect. Last question is, if you were a candidate listening right now, what would you focus on over the next 90 days?
Yeah, obviously enjoy a Christmas break. Don't be sort of too stressed out if you can. One of probably the most advised, while times are quiet and while hiring managers are going to be out of office as well, take the time, like build a custom GBT, give it as much information about you as possible, like previous job histories, work experience. Tell it to ask you as many questions as you can and fill it with as much knowledge as possible, and then get that. So again, it doesn't rewrite your CV for you or anything like that, but anytime you send in a job description, it points out stuff that you've already told before. Instead of you having to remember each time about what did I do here, it points out you could include this piece of information or this work experience or this case study into the resume for this client, because that will be more fitting, and you can remove XYZ from your CV because that they're not looking for this particular role. So again, focus on things that will help you be more efficient when it comes to putting out applications, but not something that's going to be make you more generic.
Awesome. Well, that was absolutely jam-packed with information. So yeah, I really hope that everyone that's listening to this has something to take away into the year end, into the holidays, and into the new year as well. If you have any questions, pop me and Daris a message on LinkedIn or our channel SEO for Hire. And yeah, thanks again for listening. Daris, hope you enjoy your weekend. Hope everyone enjoys their weekend as well. And yeah, we'll chat soon in the new year.